Welcome everybody to today's roundtable. The purpose of today's discussion is to discuss an Instagram influencer pricing survey that we have open at the moment. We have several tens of responses so far, and today we're going to go through them, share personal observations, experiences, and compare what people are seeing. So today we have three guests, and now we'll do a quick round of introductions. Maybe Ben, you could go first.
Sounds great. So hi everyone, I'm Ben. I'm the Senior Influencer Manager at Blast. Blast is an esports events agency where we put on loads of massive, basically huge arena events, about 6 per year, that promote Counter-Strike and Rainbow Six Siege, which are two pretty big games. Part of my role is to get influencers to attend the events and to promote the events prior to it via their social channels. So my budget is pretty limited at this point. So we tend to get influencers to come for VIP and hospitality experiences instead of just flat fees. But it's kind of totally global as well. So our next event, for example, is in Copenhagen, in Denmark, followed by Abu Dhabi, obviously in UAE, and then finally Brazil. We've got an event in Sao Paulo. So a massive mix, outreach into loads of different influencers. We tend to try and get about 100 influencers to every event. So it's pretty big scale with limited budgets. So lots of challenges, but yeah, it's a good experience.
All right, cool. So we've got primarily gaming, we've got a big spread of geographies, and mostly trading experiences for influence. Cool. Agita, you want to go next? Introduce the brand and not all the same things Ben just did.
So I am Agita. I'm a marketing associate in Wolt, Latvia, which is a technology company known for its delivery platform for food and merchandise. And I've worked in marketing for 3 or around 4 years. And for the last year and a half, I've been practicing in influencer marketing.
Great. And do you work with only Latvian influencers or multiple cities and countries?
Yeah, we mostly work with local Latvian influencers.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Valeriia.
Hello, my name is Valeriia. I'm head of media partnerships at Deeper. Deeper is a technology company. We're based in Lithuania. Our core product is the portable sonar. Our company created the first portable sonar in the world. And we also have the fishing accessories and application, Fish Deeper. And we work with a lot of countries all around the world. Like people can buy our product in 50 plus countries. And but we work with 15 plus markets in terms of marketing. So let's say I work with 15 plus countries.
Amazing. And typically, if I remember rightly, you have a trial period with new influencers, but then generally you try to work for like long-term annual contracts, right, with influencers?
Yeah, exactly. So that also has the impact on pricing.
Exactly, yeah. That's why it's all good context to know. Okay, so let's go through the survey then. So the very first one, I shared some pricing benchmarks from a study by a social media tool later, quite a popular study, and it has follow accounts, Instagram posts, Instagram Reels. And the question is basically, what do you think about these benchmarks? How do you feel that they're accurate? In the survey so far, we have basically every different answer. You know, clearly everybody has a different experience. So to kick things off, I want to ask, like, what do you think about these benchmarks and why the variation? Like, why does everybody seem to have a different experience?
I mean, I'm happy to go because I think I put a 0 in the survey. Like I thought, yeah, it was not very accurate, I guess, just from my personal experiences. So it didn't really go into much context because I felt that it didn't really vary or take into account many different factors around the influencer or the brand that you're working with or the region, for example. So I've worked across all regions, and the US in particular is very expensive. So it could be that kind of framework was applicable to US creators, but parts of like the CIS region, which I've also worked in, is notoriously cheap. So trying to bucket everything into like certain categories proves really tricky, and it doesn't take into account factors. I also think I used to work at Farfetch, and Farfetch is a very like desirable brand, and influencers wanted to work for us because we would give them like free products, free Balenciaga and Gucci and whatnot. So that was very desirable for them, and they would often be willing to reduce their fees in order to be associated with us. So I put it as a 0 based on the fact it didn't really take much of those kind of factors that I've experienced into consideration, and trying to group everything into a few different brackets could be quite problematic at times.
Got it, makes sense. So the two main things then are geography. Some markets are just more expensive than the others, and secondly, just complexity. Like it's not enough to consider follower count and content type, right? There's more going on. What about you guys, Valeriia, Agita? Did either of you rate it more accurate than a 0?
I rated this maybe like 2 out of 5 because in my case, those who have maybe from 5 till 10K, these benchmarks would be accurate. But in our case, at Deeper, we don't pay those influencers who have less than 5K. They belong to other program. They belong to the Heroes program. So they are motivated by products, by discounts, and by social exposure that they may get from us. And usually I work with those influencers who have, let's say, closer to 10K and more followers. But again, here I agree with Ben that markets are really different, and that 150 euros is one amount in Netherlands and another amount in Romania. So the country really has the impact on how much you pay. So, but I would say that row number 2 would be somewhat accurate for me. And plus, since I work, it's the fishing industry, it's the hobby. So my creators, they are professionals in fishing. So they are the anglers, it's the hobby for them. So they are primarily the anglers and influencers the second. So I think we have even only few times when we when they charge the separate amount for reels from us. So usually we agree on a post, but we don't specify. We tell that better it would be like reel, but it's the same price for us. So for us, it literally doesn't matter whether it's post or reel. We pay this lower amount as for the post.
Okay, interesting. So normally within the contract, the content type is never specified.
We don't pay more for reel, I would say.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. What about you, Agita? What do you see?
Well, it's completely different for everyone, because also as you need to order our product, we also include the cost of ordering in the pay. And there might be occasions where influencer has to search for other more creative approach to create a publication. And on this also amount of money depends. So many factors that you can't measure in numbers are important. And also we try not to look at total follower count when deciding how much to pay the influencers. So it's completely different for everyone. We mostly look at fake followers, so we exclude them. Then we look at the country where the influencer audience is based and specific cities. So putting it all together, we decide how much we're going to pay the influencer.
Gotcha. So yeah, it's more about how many relevant real people there are in the target location, right?
Exactly.
And is there much variance like between different cities for you, or it's kind of the same across the whole of Latvia?
No, it's completely different. There are a lot of smaller cities where the audience is so tiny that the influencer has maybe like 20% of the audience only from that specific city. So it really differs for everyone.
I really like that approach. Sorry to jump in. I think like when you're paying an influencer, you only really want to pay for the value that you're actually getting from them. So like for you guys, you are very regionally focused. It doesn't make sense to spend loads of money if the content's going to go to the US, for example. So that's definitely something I always consider when, like negotiating on a regional basis. And then I'm very strict, right, on my fees. Like I'm happy to turn around and say no, because I don't want to waste my budget and put money behind something that's going to potentially go to a different region. So I think like turning around and saying no is a really big skill to have, particularly when like for you guys working in a very regional market as well.
Yeah, exactly. And also, it's important for both parties to be aligned and be happy with the pay and with the communication that's going on between us.
What do you feel about brand? So I think, Ben, you touched on it, talking about your Farfetch experiences, where you found that just simply because Farfetch was a desirable brand to work with, you seem to get better deals as well. I think, Valeriia, your experience might be similar in that in most markets, your fisher, like carp anglers, for example, have probably heard of Deeper. And maybe Agita, I think the brand awareness of Wolt within Latvia should be pretty strong as well. Like, have either of you seen any differences? Like, for example, if it's a new city or a new market, like, do you face tougher negotiations because you don't have the brand awareness, or does that make sense?
For us, we don't really struggle with that because mostly everyone in Latvia knows what Volt is. So that's pretty easy for us. This industry is person-to-person relationships, so it's really important, and we just try to be as genuine as possible, and things move on as they should.
Cool. What about you, Valeriia? I think you have experience with markets that where Deeper does have good brand awareness, and experience where Deeper does not have good brand awareness. Do you see a big difference in the negotiations?
That has the impact on pricing definitely, because let's say that amount that I can pay for Instagram influencer in Germany, where all the anglers know about Deeper. So the same amount of money I would pay to the influencer in Canada that has 3 times less followers, just because in Canada there are not so many anglers that we can work with. So again, it's like a separate niche for us, because the Deeper sonars, they are small, they are like the tennis ball, and they are different from those heavy traditional sonars on the boat. So we target those anglers who fish from the kayak or from the shore, but those are less than those who go fishing with a boat. So obviously, if I don't have much choice of the influencers in that country, this is the case where I can go for the upper price in case of the influencer. And also, I would mention about the US market, because as Agita told, regarding the fake followers. So usually it's very helpful feature in Madash to check the fake followers percentage. And in USA, it's they have a lot of fake followers, so always like more than 25%. And as they told us, because as they are not professionals in social media, they are not say influencers. So they would like to be sponsored by companies, and when they write to them, so companies tell that we won't sponsor you because you don't have this X amount of followers. And they're thinking, so what should I do? And they go and just buy the followers. And a lot of companies actually, they don't check even such elementary metric as the fake followers. So again, the pricing of those influencers, it's like upper than actually the potential reach that you may get with them. So in this case, when I see that the price is upper, but he has a lot of those fake followers, but in case if I still need this person, because maybe he has the contacts with the retailers, and maybe he can be also useful for other activities. In this case, I just write about this, that okay, your pricing is different from our benchmarks. Like if you have such amount of followers, we expect this amount of likes, so we expect this comment. So I just saw that we know what you did, and actually it always helps. So then they agree to my terms.
And I can also add that Valeriia said that they sometimes have problems with influencers in specific countries or cities. We also have the same thing where if it's a smaller city, the influencers, we don't have many options to choose from. And a lot of the times influencers themselves don't really know what their audience is. So I think it's also good to educate the influencers themselves on what their audience is. So maybe tell them that this many percentages from their local city, and then this is other city, so they know what they have But all in all, we in Volt avoid benchmarking in general and tend to look at how much influencer has to give and prepare for Volt to create a project or a post.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think two great points: bringing data points to the negotiation, and sharing your expectations. Like, this is what we expect, and therefore, if what we're seeing is less than that, then it's justification for why the budget might be lower, for example. But let's keep moving on. So the next topic from the survey was when marketers begin a pricing discussion, like the very first step of the negotiation. Most marketers seem to ask the influencer to quote their rate, or at least they ask if they have a rate first. More than half of the respondents so far are saying that. A few of them said that it depends on how big the creator is. Like maybe for the smaller ones it's different, and a smaller minority of people say that they give their budget up front first. What are our thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, we give them budget straight away and then negotiate if one of the parties is not satisfied with the price. But we take a look at every collaboration individually, and as we mostly work with long-term collaborations, we have dedicated budget that goes to this every single month.
Gotcha. Okay, so you have an internal guideline, like a fixed amount, like this is how much we can spend, and so you just cut to the chase up front. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
I think
just out of interest, do you find that kind of a good approach? I guess from my experience, well, I mean, I'd be keen to hear from you, because what if somebody agrees instantly? In the back of your mind, are you like, oh, could I have got a better deal if I'd gone lower, or do you not really consider it like that?
Oh yeah, it depends on every single situation. So if they want more, we take a look at the situation, what they can offer, maybe something more. Then we also can agree on a higher price, and it differs with every single one. But influencer marketing is really important channel in Volt, so we try to be as supportive as we can with influencers.
Great. Do you find it's more efficient going that way? Like, does it reduce negotiation times, for example?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I mean, I always ask for their fees first and then negotiate based off that. So I would always say, if someone asked for $1,000, I would probably halve that and try and get a good deal. But then obviously it takes a lot of time, because then there's this constant back and forth of trying to negotiate as good a price as possible. So yeah, I see the pros of just going straight in and asking for, that this is what we can offer. Do you say yes or no? I totally get it.
Well, I guess it's a little bit different with Volt, because we mostly work on long-term collaborations, and we switch pricing every time we switch collaborations. So, and also we switch influencers depending on their demographics, profiles, experience, and job quality. So we take a look of every single influencer independently.
Gotcha. And I think at the moment, Ben, your collaborations tend to be event by event, right? Rather than year-long partnerships. Is that right?
Yeah, at this point in time, my current role, we would just invite a select group per event. So because it's very regional, and then we won't return to that place again for a year, it doesn't make sense for us to have kind of long-term ambassadors. So for our Denmark event, we have a hit list of 100, 150 influencers, and we can go out and outreach to them. And then, we probably won't then speak to them again for a year. So it's quite interesting. So yeah, it's very much one-off.
Gotcha. And that is okay. What about you, Valeriia? So your end goal is to find a great fit influencer that you're going to have a year-long contract with. How do you arrive at the price? Are you the one giving the budget up front, or are you asking them for their rate, or how does this work?
I'm the one who asks always for the rate first, because obviously it's the basics of negotiation. And the second, because in my case, they can't just create the content just being in their apartment or house. They need to go fishing, and each influencer, he knows himself the months when he's active. Maybe he's active just 3 months of the year. Someone is active all year. So obviously, the stats of his account has the influence on pricing, but also the amount of quantity that he's able to produce, whether it would be on monthly basis, and it can be Reels, YouTubes, every month. but another influencer can produce just Instagram content. So it really depends on deliverables and how many months he can be active. But generally speaking, I can tell how we choose the influencer and how we choose the pricing. So I have the checklist, and the potential influencer should meet these criteria. For example, I look at this data of his account, like the percentage of target audience in that country. So let's say he needs to have more than 60-70% of Canadian living people if we are searching for influencer in Canada. Then the second is engagement rate. So our benchmarks are from 3 to 10 engagement rate. So if all good is there, then I go to check up other numbers like likes, comments, which type of the comments, how authentic are those comments. Then I check the views of the Reels, YouTube video views. So with Modash, it's pretty simple to check the average views. So you already can prognose the preliminary reach from that influencer. If all good with that, then I check the fake followers. So below 15% is good. Maybe in case of America, 25% also maybe good. If those 4 points look great, then I take into account his audience size. It helps to set the pricing, and after the audience size, I negotiate with him on which platforms he's able to post the content, or just Instagram, but maybe he also has the TikTok, so he can cross post there. So maybe he also can cross post to YouTube Shorts. Obviously, the more content, the bigger fee may be there because he reaches more people. And he also tells which is realistic amount of content that he's able to produce. For those influencers who are not savvy, they don't know how to do the pricing. So for those, I have like the standard package that includes one post and a few story series per month. This is very realistic that everybody can do that. Somebody can do more. So in this case, he can tell that I can do 2 posts, I can do like more stories. So, okay, let's go for that. And that has influence on pricing. And the final factor that has the influence is the location. Again, whether it's Netherlands, whether it's Romania, these benchmarks would be different.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so I think I also understood there that you have kind of like a default thing. You said for influencers who don't really know what is their pricing, like they're not super savvy on that side of their like creative business yet. But then you also invite them to tell you, like, this is what is reasonable for me, and this is how much I would charge,
Yes.
and then you take that.
In this case, when they don't know how to write the invoices, and when they don't know how to set up the pricing, in this case, I make the offer first. So I suggest that, okay, you can do this type of content. We are ready to pay this amount of money for this content, and usually it always works.
In my experience, influencers always know what they are worth. So if they don't agree with the price, they always straight up say what they would like to have. But the pricing between influencers doesn't vary that much. It's only because that we also acknowledge the time and effort everybody puts in their work.
I'm glad that we have both approaches here, like budget first and requesting rates first. I suppose with the strategy, as Ben said, one of the advantages is simply that you cut out negotiation time, I guess, in a lot of cases, so you can probably do like more negotiations with fewer people in the team as well. So that's one thing. But I also suppose that maybe the creator just feels good, like they feel more positive towards Wolt if, you know, maybe there are some cases where you pay more than you could have, but I suppose in those instances the creator is quite motivated and just generally has good feeling towards Wolt. So I asked the participants which of the following data points do you consider, and we looked at things like engagement rate, average views, percentage of audience in the target locations and demographics, fake follower percentage, and paid post performance, and a few people mentioned other things as well. But by this chart that will be on the screen, it's clear that engagement rate is the number one that almost everybody uses. So first question is that, do you all use that as well? And second question is there like a caveat? Like, do you literally just look at engagement rate on its own, or do you also try to, is it worth the time to like dig deeper and see where is that engagement coming from? Or like, how do you use that metric?
Engagement rate is really important for us, but as I mentioned previously, we filter by primarily looking at the fake follower count and then location to see the real reach that we need. And then we cross check the engagement because we've noticed that there are accounts who are quality accounts, but posts don't really get that many comments or likes. And I also think the comments don't really mean that much and don't really show the post quality, because a lot of the time comments are made by fake accounts, so it can be really misleading.
Has anyone, do you ever come across like kind of one-hit wonders where the engagement rate is really high, but then if you actually look into it, it's just maybe one post that went viral, or do you generally find that engagement rate is quite a semi-reliable metric?
In my case, I didn't have that.
Semi-reliable.
Okay, good. Ben, any experiences?
Yeah, I don't want to be controversial, but I think like some of my top performing talent at Farfetch had like 0.5% engagement rates, and I think engagement rate is a good barometer, but it doesn't really drill down into how much influence they have on their community. So I always like to look at the content and the type of content. So if the influencer's doing like Q&As, for example, on their Instagram stories and promoting their followers to engage, that can be a really strong indicator that they have strong influence within their community outside of engagement rate. I also think it depends from like gender to gender a lot. So I'm incredibly influenced by a lot of people that I follow on my personal Instagram accounts, but I don't necessarily like or comment or engage with their content, even though I buy from their brand or I buy from the products that they promote. So gender to gender, we've seen a big difference there. So if it's males, for example, like in streetwear or in fashion, they could have tiny engagement rates, but huge influence over lots of males within the population. So that's just maybe a novel example, but it's not something I necessarily get too hung up over, engagement rates. I've just seen so many good examples of people driving great performance with 0.2% engagement rates for me to worry too much about it.
Okay, yeah, I mean, there's actually quite a few different things to unpack there, but I think coming back to the point about engagement rate, it sounds like both Agita and Ben, you both think about percentage of audience in the right places and fake followers, like effectively how many out of those, say, 100k followers that you have, how many of them are actually relevant to me? That's like number one thing. Is it also the case for you, Valeriia?
Yeah, usually I consider all of the factors that are indicated in this figure, but I would just move the fake followers upper for me, because anyway, I try to make the pricing based on CPM. So let's say I know that, so for example, now I have the range of CPM from 10 to 30 euros. So in case if I eliminate the fake followers, I would prognose that preliminary reach of this account, the preliminary impression of the account is this and that. So then I know the CPM, so I can make those range of the pricing, how much I would pay to this influencer. But in our industry, they not always disclose that they have the paid partnership with this or another brand. So I would be happy to check up all the sponsored posts that they have, but it's really hard to identify, because in this industry, the anglers, they don't like these direct promotions. And in our case, and like other brands in the industry, we pay for using of our product, so they need to show it organically. Of course, we ask them that for sure you can indicate that it's paid partnership with Deeper and so on and so forth. So then we can add this to our own Instagram page. But sometimes they just don't do that, because they tell that my followers will smell that I'm related to the company, so I won't put the paid partnership. So I would be glad to assess how the paid posts of other brands performed to the usual post, but sometimes it's really hard to understand which post is sponsored, which post is not, because they don't disclose this information.
Interesting. That actually, yeah. So on the list of data points, paid post performance was actually the lowest rated. Like the fewest people actually use that as part of the pricing decision. And one of my questions was going to be like, why do you think that's the case? So maybe that's one of them. Maybe it's just not very reliable if people are not doing correct ad disclosures all the time. I guess maybe for smaller creators also, they just don't have many previous sponsored posts that use it. But Agita, Ben, do you ever consider previous paid post performance in your pricing decisions?
I would say that it didn't have the influence on pricing, but it just it should be among those checklists that I thought in the beginning, that I would try to check the quality of the content that he does, and then the quality of the likes, the quality of the comments. So yeah.
Gotcha. So it's a tick in the box rather than
Yeah,
something
it's
that,
just a tick in the box to understand that he doesn't get the negative comment under the sponsored post.
Any other experiences with paid post performance? You use it? Don't use it?
When it's possible, when it shows in Modash, then we take a look at it, but it's definitely not the most important thing that we look at.
Yeah, I also think if it pulls in, it might struggle to pull in Instagram stories, for example, which is like the main platform and the main brief that we ask influencers to do. So if it's not pulling and tracking all of the stories that an influencer might be promoting, then it's not a full kind of data set for us. So probably wouldn't consider it as much, but I would definitely use the function on Modash to have a look at previous collaborations and previous sponsorships and just almost like anecdotally check how the performance looked and whether the content was nice. And then I'll use that as almost like just another tick in the box, like Valeriia said.
Okay, cool, interesting. So I think, yeah, maybe the number one thing that came out of this question for me then is that it seems like percentage of kind of real relevant followers is maybe a little bit underused. Like if we look at the percentage of people that are using these things, around about 50% of the respondents said that they use fake followers in pricing, and only around 60 to 65% are using a percentage of audience in the like target locations or target demographics. I think maybe there are some scenarios where it matters a bit less. Like, for example, if you're a software company, like a mobile app, maybe that you don't care necessarily geographically where the people are. But yeah, overall, it seems like they're potentially underutilized, which is interesting. So the next question was about add-ons and extras in negotiation. So a few things that are kind of non-standard that maybe some influencers request additional fees for, depending on the circumstances. And I asked people to rank which ones they believe is the most valuable, which ones that they most often ask for or potentially even pay extra for. Things included, the order is content usage rights for repurposing, primarily, presumably, was the number one. Exclusivity among competitors was the second most popular. Paying extra to cross-post content on another platform was third. Link in bio and faster content turnaround times, fourth and fifth. What do you think? Do any of you actively request any of these things as part of the negotiations?
Yeah, for us, it's definitely important that we can share their content in our socials as well. And also an important thing is that it's an exclusive collaboration. But a lot of it also depends on the society because, for example, Latvians are really humble and they don't really want to be pushed. So, for example, link in bio is not a usual practice for us.
Okay, interesting. And do you for the content like licensing and the exclusivity, do you pay extra, or is that part of your initial pitch? Like this is what we want. This is our budget. Take it or leave it, or like how does that work?
Well, we usually have an agreement, so it's also noted in the agreement that this has to be an exclusive collaboration, but it also depends on what kind of collaboration it is. If it's a long-term collaboration, then it's really important, but if it's only a one-time thing, then we take a look at every situation and every influencer.
In my case, the exclusivity among competitors is the most important. So the most important is that they won't use the same category of the sonar like ours. if I see that the influencer that we don't work with posts how he uses another portable toner and he posts regularly, so I presume that he can't switch to Deeper. In this case, I don't even approach him because it won't look organic for the audience. But like Agita, we also have this point in our contract, so that they need, if they use the Deeper portable toner, that then we have the exclusivity on their Instagram page.
Is that something that you actively pay more for, or is it just that you don't even engage, like if you don't have that?
We don't even engage. It's rather it's a requirement that they should work only with our portable toner. They still may use the other sonar brands, but in another category. So let's say he has the boat, he has the heavy sonar there, so it's fine for us. But he uses Deeper when he fishes from the shore or when he fishes from the kayak. So we demand exclusivity only in that niche.
Gotcha. And in your experience, do influencers ever like come back to you and say, like, if you want me to cross post this on YouTube Shorts, then it would cost extra, or if you want me to do, if you want content usage rights to use this picture in your own socials or on your website, do they actually come back and say that would cost more, or are not? Are these
no, they just post that content. If they have their business Facebook, so they will just cross post that Instagram reel to Facebook reel. They will just cross post it to Shorts. So actually, it comes automatically to us, so we don't pay extra for that. And we don't pay extra for content usage, right? So it's written in the contract that you give your permission to use your photos, let's say, on our page. Of course, if it's the paid advertisement, in this case, I write to them and tell that we're going to use this in this placement. So do you allow this? So usually it's yes, and that we don't pay extra for that.
Interesting. I'm hoping, Ben, and actually expecting that maybe you have some experience with maybe slightly more aggressive negotiations where influencers have come to you and said, like, if you want me to do that, then it costs X extra. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think like the main thing that I'm immediately noticing from this conversation is the variety of influencers that are out there. So like a fishing angler is very different to like a fashion model who has constant brands coming to her like every day. It's their whole like life, and they are very savvy when it comes to negotiation, knowing what they're worth and agreeing higher fees. So when I worked for Farfetch, for example, had to be very savvy around like what we paid for. What we would always try and include in contracts that we get organic usage rights, we get paid advertising usage rights, and they would either have an agent or know themselves, and they would immediately call it out and ask for higher fees. So there were times where we would end up being forced to pay more for this kind of piece, just if that's what we were planning on doing, putting some paid media or paid spend behind the content, we would always have to pay more. Like we didn't really have a choice there. On the exclusivity side as well, like again, this kind of relates to the type of influencer. It was nigh on impossible for us to agree exclusivity. These influencers would maybe have 5 or 6 brand deals a week. And if we said, you can't work with any other fashion brands, they'd be like, we're not doing that. We would be out of the job. So we would always ask for it. Like it's an ask, and maybe 1 in 10 would agree. And we would always say maybe a 3-day period either side of the posts. They couldn't promote a direct competitor. But again, it was a very hard ask. So I think, what's really evident is the type of influencer that we've all worked with, and like the real range, and how, I wouldn't say difficult, but how different they can be when it comes to negotiating.
I would say that our influencers are involved in offline activities as well. And this is where we pay extra. But then it goes like case by case. For example, we have the exhibition in January. Our ambassador will participate there. So we will pay for his work at this exhibition because he will work together with us at the stand. Also, we pay extra when he goes filming for 24, 48 hours with another filming influencer or like filming magazine. So this is the extra work, so it's also paid on top. And if he creates some materials that we can use specifically for our PPC campaign, so in this case, it also may be paid as extra.
Okay, yeah, that's super interesting. And I think what Ben said about the different variety, like I think the two main factors seem to be the size of the creator. Like the bigger the creator, the more likely they are to have an agent, let's say, that would negotiate these things. And secondly, like the type, fashion, beauty, fitness, maybe these are the type of categories that you see more aggressive competition where creators are getting lots of outreach from brands. But then maybe other niches is slightly less competitive and less aggressive. And yeah, I also gathered there at the end that there are many more things that you might pay extra for, including like Valeriia, your example, with basically just paying for the person's time to represent the brand in various ways at an event, for example. So the next question was around deliverables versus reach, because I think these are two of the like key factors in pricing. It's like, how many people are they going to reach? And then secondly, what are you actually asking the influencer to do? Like, are you making an elaborate 1 hour long documentary, or are you posting, spending 5 minutes to create an Instagram post? And majority of people believe that they're basically inseparable. Like you can't consider one without the other. There are a few people that seem to approach their pricing purely based on, let's say, like expected reach, and they don't really consider the type of content, which I think maybe Valeriia, you hinted at earlier, where you don't necessarily specify that, but what do we think?
In this case, I chose the option number one because for me, the reach and the deliverables, they are both important. The first, I take a look at the reach to understand how many people we can actually reach, and then the second goes the content. So, or it's the post, or it's reels that can actually boost the engagement, and with the reels you can reach a lot of people. So again, the content type is important.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it goes hand in hand because if they can't publish what we are asking, because we always have strict guidelines about that, then we don't get the reach that we need, and both is really important for us.
Come on, Ben, give us the counter view.
No. I agree. I personally would rather pay for the reach more than the content. When I was at Farfetch, for example, we wouldn't repurpose any of the content. There were no plans to use it on our own social channels. So the main goal was how many eyes can we get on the content rather than the different types and the different variations. But as the guys have mentioned, they're completely intertwined. So for this time, I agree. So that's good.
Cool. So does that mean that when you say that you prefer to pay based on the reach, this comes back again to the content format? Like, let's say if a reel and a story were expected to get the same number of eyeballs, like views, would you prefer one or the other? Like, for example, story clicks because they have links, or does it not matter?
Yeah, in that scenario, if it was the same, I would go with stories personally, just from experience and having the ability to link away from site. Like, I would always try and prioritize that. But I think it's been touched on in the survey that reels have that opportunity to kind of go viral as well. So you could take a punt and you could take a risk that there's going to be kind of increased exposure potentially off the back. So we'll definitely look at paying maybe more for a reel there. But then that's what it comes back to, because there's potentially more reach off the back of it.
I agree with Ben because for us, we usually order the package, so it goes the story and the post or reel. So story it's a must that everybody can create and should create. And if the creator can create reels, so we always ask that you please create reels, because in this case you can reach more people than just his followers. And here I saw the engagement over 100 in Nodez, and I was like, is that some kind of a bug or what? but then I understood that it's due to the reels that he posts, so he reaches a lot of audience that are not his subscribers.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe this is a good time to move on, because as Ben said, we do have a question in the survey about this, and it seemed like the reels and stories were roughly like equally popular, and posts kind of didn't get quite as much love in terms of like who prioritizes them as a content format on Instagram. In terms of the order of most to least expensive, are reels typically the most expensive content format from influencers in your experience?
From experience, yes. I think it takes the most amount of planning and the most amount of effort from the creator to create a nice reel. I think if you were to put really small amounts of effort into creating a reel, then it wouldn't resonate. It wouldn't be picked up by the Instagram algorithm, and that tends to reflect, the price of it. So we would always pay more for reels because, like I said, one, it's got that option to could potentially go viral, and two, it needs more resource and more effort from the creator to make. Like Instagram stories are very easy. Like in our case, you could just promote an unboxing. You could record it from your hand, like with your camera near your face, and you could just see the unboxing there. Whereas a reel, that might not resonate as much. It might need to be a full styled outfit and potentially with like a videographer, a camera crew, and special lighting. So there's kind of two different efforts that go into that type of content, and I think the price reflects that for sure.
Do you have any combinations of things? Like for example, if you pay for a reel, is it sometimes possible to get a story thrown in for free or for not much extra?
I think you can hope, we would tend to hope that would be the case. Maybe it's like a slightly unwritten rule within influencers that the influencer might do that as a nice gesture, but I wouldn't necessarily pay more for a story promoting the reel. We would always do it as a combination, so it would be 5 Instagram stories plus a reel. You get the benefits of being able to link away from site on the stories. You then get the opportunity that the content can be seen by more people and have more reach from the reel. So it's that combination factor, and I think that works really well for us.
What about posts? You just don't think about them, or?
I don't know. I just don't think that they're being promoted by the algorithm at all. Like static imagery, I just think knowing Instagram in general, that they're trying to compete with TikTok and Reels of what they're really pushing. So posts just not really of interest, to be honest.
What about you, Agita? What kind of content formats are you requesting or pricing?
Well, minding that they are our brand ambassadors in long terms, we ask them to talk about a specific topic that is relevant in a specific month. And in most cases, reels work best, but sometimes we see the best results are coming in from posts and stories. But all in all, I think it really depends on the theme of the month. Because then the audience they get it, or they are maybe not so interested in it. So it depends on the theme.
Do you tell the influencer that they should use a certain content format, or do you just say this is the topic and then they create content however they believe will work best?
We give them complete creative freedom, so they can decide what they want to do.
Gotcha. What about you, Valeriia? I think we gathered from what you said before that there's a bit of a mix, and maybe they tell you what they're willing to do or what they can do.
Yeah, for us, the reel still works the best because they help to create that fast brand awareness on the market. Stories are number one according to the survey results because they are able to put our UTM link in stories. And actually, we noticed the direct connection when let's say our influencers from one country, all of them posted a story and they put that link with a specific time limited promotion into their account, and we noticed that when they did that, there were spikes in our e-commerce sales. So on the days where everybody posted the stories, and we could track that with the link, of course. So there's the direct connection to sales for us.
Okay, yeah, so it sounds like you have a similar experience to Ben in that you like the reels for the potential to reach new people, outside of the regular audience, and grow brand awareness, and you like stories based on the fact that they can have clearer link to traffic and sales because of link clicks, which is backs up definitely what we see in the survey so far. Actually, these are all the questions that I had in mind, but has there been at any point during this conversation some extra thought that came up that you think might be interesting or relevant to the conversation?
For me, it was just interesting to hear that every single opinion is completely different. So I think there is no right way how to work with influencers, and you just have to trust yourself and the influencer and make it work.
I think that it really depends on the industry. because in fashion and beauty they are already spoiled because like a lot of brands contact them, while in our industry like it's the niche product, so they're not so savvy like in the guys industry.
I also find it's interesting that everybody is like trying to maximize as much as they can with their given budget. So getting the same piece of content and using it across Instagram and TikTok. So as influencer marketers, we're trying to be really savvy with often limited budgets and trying to get as much exposure, views and engagement almost sometimes on a shoestring. So I think we all have the same mentality, that we're constantly being a bit scrappy and trying to make everything work, which is really cool to see.
Yeah. It also seems to me that it seems to back up the idea that just amount of time and experience in a specific market or industry really seems to matter in influencer marketing, because like you said, Agita, like they're all so different, and someone just getting started in like fishing influencer marketing, for example, they have so much to learn before they can't, if for example, Ben, you started working for a fishing brand right now, like a lot of what your past experiences, you'd have to throw them out the window and start like learning again. It's just so different, which is really interesting.